Here we go again.
No, not again.
You've been before.
How long have we been doing this?
Once more unto the bridge.
Again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews with connections in mind. The Iron Giant, directed by Brad Bird, released in 1999, continues my unofficial series of movies that star Vin Diesel in some form or another. And this is just really to fill the space in between new recent movie releases, and I just felt like I could make a good movie, and it's a great movie to watch. It's a story of the titular character, the Iron Giant, falling to Earth, having no memory of itself, and discovered by a young boy named Hogarth Hughes. And Hogarth teaches the Iron Giant how to become essentially his friend, and learning about humanity and the goodness of humanity in the process. Now, this video review will contain spoilers of The Iron Giant, of course, as well as certain plot-related spoiler discussion of several other films as well. There will be a full list in the description below. And if you haven't seen The Iron Giant yet, or any of the films listed below, and want to wait until you have, stop the video at this point and come back later. But with these things in mind, though, let's begin. So as I said, Iron Giant is the story of the titular character, the Iron Giant, voiced by Vin Diesel, coming to Earth from space. He loses all memory of his mission. He has no idea who he is or even how to talk. And he is discovered by this young boy named Hogarth Hughes around the small town of Rockwell, Maine, in 1957, during the height of the Cold War, and during the space craze where Sputnik's in the air. And in the midst of this, with government agents coming in to investigate the Iron Giant and all the disturbances that he's causing, Hogarth teaches the Giant how to essentially talk and become essentially a human being and a human child with fantasies and all the good things in humanity, such as guns are bad and don't kill. And this will become important later on in the film when the government catches up with the Iron Giant and Hogarth, threatens his family, and the Giant reverts to old ways, and he is faced with a moral dilemma. Now, there are certain elements of this film that are very familiar to films that have come before and since as well. Let's start with the obvious ones and go from there. First, this film shares a lot in common, both plot-wise and thematically, with Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Terminator 2 featured another killer robot, mainly the Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, coming to Earth, and he is eventually befriended by a young child, the young John Connor, played by Edward Furlong, and the young child, the Terminator's tasked with protecting Edward Furlong from the T-1000, and the boy ends up, Edward Furlong's character ends up teaching the Terminator all these things about being a human and being a overall good protector, such as his favorite, popular pop culture icons include his famous catchphrase, "Hasta la vista, baby," and the Terminator ends up doing good because of the influence of this child, and by film's end, he ends up sacrificing himself to protect the child and his mother, Sarah Connor. Now, this is very similar to the Iron Giant because, as I said before, the Giant comes to Earth, he's befriended by a young child, the child teaches him all these good values, and when the Iron Giant's original programming finally kicks in, and he starts terrorizing the military and attacking these military units, Hogarth convinces him to reject his original programming and do good. And by the end, he ends up sacrificing himself to save the town and this young boy as well. Next, this film also shares a lot in common thematically and somewhat plot-wise with the film E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial. That film also featured another alien coming to Earth, befriending a small child, and the government comes in looking for it. They want to understand him, and the boy and the child and the alien grow together to form a bond, which becomes important later on. And the government is eventually foiled in learning more about E.T. because of the child's influence and E.T.'s aid. E.T. is able to eventually return home, and the government is foiled in their attempt to study him. Now, this is very similar to the Iron Giant, of course, because, as I said before, the Iron Giant is a alien robot life form who comes to Earth, and during the height of the Cold War, no one knows what this is. So the government, in the form of Agent Kent Mansley, comes to Rockwell in order to search him, when he eventually brings in the military as well to help learn about him and quarantine him and fight him. But in the end, the government is denied their opportunity to learn about him because the Iron Giant sacrifices himself. Next, the character of the Iron Giant features is very similar to the character arc of Jason Bourne. Now, the Jason Bourne films did come out after the Iron Giant, but the novels that the Jason Bourne films were based on did come out before the Iron Giant was released. Now, Jason Bourne's character, as established in the first film, The Bourne Identity, is very similar to the Iron Giant in that Jason Bourne is essentially a living weapon. He is established as a cold-hearted killer whose sole mission is to kill people, and his memory is erased in the Bourne Identity, and throughout the course of the movie, and then all the following movies since, he essentially rejects that programming that he's done, and he learns to live a life aside from that, and other government agencies are trying to find him, but they're also afraid of him. Very similar to the Iron Giant, who, as I said before, is a alien life form, essentially a living weapon, who has his memory erased, and because of the things he learns after his memory wipe, he chooses to reject that programming and does the honorable thing and saves the town. Finally, although not really a you've seen it before element, but more of a production design element, but still a fun tidbit, the character design of the Iron Giant when his weapons systems activated, especially with the laser, essentially like arms, snake arms, is that what you would call them? Snake arms protruding from his back, looking around every which way, picking out targets, is very reminiscent of the original creature designs envisioned in the original book of The War of the Worlds, which this movie was heavily inspired by in terms of story arc and character design of the Iron Giant. So as I said, not really, and this does show up in the film adaptation of War of the Worlds, a couple of them, but most especially the most recent Tom Cruise adaptation, which came out after the Iron Giant. As I said, not really you've seen it before sort of tidbit, but a fun aspect of something that came before that directly influenced the character design of the Iron Giant. So are these things that make the Iron Giant similar to things that have come before mean that you shouldn't see the Iron Giant? I would say most emphatically no. The Iron Giant is a great and especially underrated animated film. When this film was first released, it did not do stellar in the box office, and the studio originally wrote it off as a flop. But afterwards, it was essentially rediscovered, and it's become such a strong following after that it's essentially become a modern-day classic in the animated film franchise universe. And it really does deserve it. It has great characters, great plot. It's unique in that the Iron Giants, the actual Iron Giant, is one of the first fully computer-generated characters in an otherwise traditionally animated film, but he still looks like he blends in with the rest of the film because the designers gave the edges of the Iron Giant's lines a sort of wobble, so that it looks like they was hand-drawn, but it was actually computer-generated. So they're great visuals to go along with this film. And personally, I like the historical aspect of it being set in the height of the Cold War when Sputnik was first launched. And overall, I would say this film has a lot of great moments of just tender family moments and great messages as well. Now, are there any negatives that go with this film? I would say, on the whole, really no. Although I would say, if you go see it, I would say stick to the theatrical version. There is a signature edition that came after, that was released afterwards, and it added in a couple scenes that, that once you see the two versions, you'll notice what they are, and when you see them side by side, you realize that it really doesn't add much to the film, and it's one of those signature editions that's like, there's really no point in those extra scenes being added in there. It's just kind of there. And plus, one of the scenes they do add in kind of ruins the surprise that comes later with the surprise reveal of the Iron Giant's role. Because up until the Iron Giant's dent in his forehead comes out and he discovers his true purpose, we don't necessarily know what his purpose was. We get hints at it when he uses his laser vision to fry a hole in the scrapyard, but we really don't know the true extent of his abilities until he goes essentially full berserk. While in the signature edition, they add in sort of a dream sequence of the Iron Giant that shows the other copies of the Giant devastating a alien city, and that kind of that places it about midway through the film, and that kind of ruins the surprise that comes later. So as I said, go see this movie definitely in the theatrical version first, before you see the signature edition. Go to your local Walmart, Target, Best Buy, and pick it up, or your local library. I don't know if it's necessarily on Netflix yet, or if at all. If it is, go see it. Make sure it's the theatrical version though. So yeah. So that's my review of The Iron Giant. My next video review should be for the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which should be coming out May 5th. I'll be doing a You've Seen It Before review of that, as well as a written review on IMDb. So yeah, thank you for, so guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I get. Thank you so much for what few subscribers I have. Share it with your friends, like, if you wish. And yeah, so as I said, there's nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before. So until next time, thank you for watching.